there, dolly friends. Welcome to the doll cupboard. I'm Dot, and I'm so happy that you're here today. You're in the infirmary of Whistleby House, and these are the Twisselmans working on a patient who has lost her limbs. This is Mrs. Quince. Mrs. Quince helps her husband out down by the wharf, and she delivers fish from their catch to the local restaurants. She was in a bicycle accident and dislocated all of her limbs. Now, this might seem very serious in the human world, but in the doll world, it's actually a moderately serious injury and can be remedied without too much pain or discomfort to Mrs. Quince. Needless to say, though, she is heavily sedated. There are some mishaps, however, which cannot be remedied in the infirmary, and I'm going to show you that today. Well, dolly friends, I've been working on the exterior of Charlotte's cottage, and I won't show you too much. I mean, there isn't too much that I've been doing, but it's going to be a stone-covered cottage, and the roof is going to have moss on it, like an old English cottage. Ooh, what? That was not an earthquake. That was me kicking my tripod. Anyway, I was going to use my plan thus far was to use egg carton bits, which I've already torn up and have ready to go. However, I go for a walk every day, and while I was walking, I'm looking at all these walnut shells on the ground, and I'm thinking, well, she does have a walnut shell bed, and I've made so many things in her cottage of things I found on the ground. I took out my little box of found nature, and I thought, well, I wonder if I could make stones out of walnut shells. This is an old one that I found. I have a box full of them. So, and then I thought, or maybe I could make them out of bark. We have these cool oak trees growing around here, and they shed this bark, and it's really actually kind of cool, and you can use it for things. You can actually cut it. This is some old one that I found like last year, but you can soak it and make it a little more pliable. But I don't know, I thought I might test it out and see which one I like. So I'm going to do a little sampling today before I continue work on my cottage. I'm trying to remind myself that today's project is only a sampling and not my actual project. That's making me feel a little better. Also, after watching several of my YouTube friends' videos on making stone cottages out of egg cartons, I decided that I want to kind of grout them or apply some moss-looking substance like flocking or turf. So I actually bought this. My friend Whitney from Whitney Labree's Miniatures told me she got hers at Hobby Lobby, and it's lasted forever. So I went and bought some. And then I thought, okay, I was thinking that if I couldn't find it, how I might make my own. So before I actually went to Hobby Lobby, I went to the dollar store, and I got the foam. They usually have it at the Dollar Tree, but they didn't. I ended up getting the Floral foam. This is the kind that if you get it wet, you can just stick your flowers in it, but it just kind of crumbles apart. So I ended up getting that at Hobby Lobby because they didn't have any at the Dollar Tree. But I got some moss, and I got some of this colored sand. And I thought I might try mixing up my own and see which one I like best. And I got this little container there too. I thought I might put it in. So it's going to be pretty messy, but I'm going to try to do that. yet. I'm gonna try this. Oh, look at that. That works really well and it's super easy. Of course, you don't need a little tool like this. You could probably just do it with your fingers, or you could do it with any, you know, any kind of straight edge, a knife, your X-Acto knife, a pair of scissors. There's many, many ways you could do this. Ooh, I'm liking the way that's looking.
Well, you get the idea, and I'm going to add the sand.
Well, it just adds a little color. Maybe that was even too much paper bag or something, so you can just pour it into whatever you want. All right. I mean, I might as well smash what I have here, and we'll tear up some of that. This, it would be very easy to just tear as you go, so I don't really need to tear it up ahead of time. I don't.
This is the first of many mistakes that happen in my little project here, is using hot glue. I don't know what possessed me to use hot glue. More than likely my impatience. I don't even know how long it's been since I've taken out my hot glue. This glue gun is probably at a bare minimum 20 years old. In fact, the glue sticks I have were marked 1988. There was no end of stringing, and oh my gosh, I was going out of my mind because I couldn't concentrate on what I was doing for the stringing. So I made a mess of everything and I'm rushing. It's just that time of year where there just isn't enough time, and I really want to get going on this project. So I thought this was going to be a quick and easy sampling to decide what I liked. It ended up being a complete nightmare. And you can see the outtakes at the end of the video, which are endless. I had to edit them. I had to cut back on what I included in there. So I'm just gonna carry on here. Yeah, I'm nothing if not tenacious, but I do end up giving up the hot glue. The egg carton, I had already decided on shapes and sizes for my cottage of what I need, and I was very careful. I had my patience pants on nice and snug and tore it all up. So I was using the scraps of what I had torn, which was also probably not a good idea because they were edges and thin pieces, and I really just didn't take the time I needed on this project, and you will see why this is a very bad idea. Can you see all the glue stuck there? But I persisted, at least with the bark, and I kind of like the way the bark looks in terms of stone, and it would be fine to leave it
Without even adding any paint or anything. So in my opinion, that was utter torture for me with the hot glue gun. Yeah. Now I know why I don't use it. And I don't know if it's because I have such an old and inexpensive one or what, but yeah, I don't think I can go on that way. And I think what I'm going to try, this might not actually be any better. It says crystal clear instant grab. So I'm gonna try this and just kind of put it all over and see if that works. Of course it's sticky. All right, so let's just, let's try it that way. Because my idea is to, put them close together so that I don't actually have much grouting or moss or whatever you want to call it. A little better. So I'm going to carry on in this fashion with my 3-in-1 glue. All right, well, there is the walnut, and it was really challenging. So I was going to do them all the same to see how they look with the same treatment, but I'm actually concerned that the walnut won't take the paint unless I prime it first. So I guess I can just see. I guess I'll just try it because I don't really want to do some priming and not. And I'm not inclined to be using the walnut anyway. So I don't know. But I'm sure you'll leave comments and let me know what you think. So let me clean up and let this dry a little bit, and I'll come back to it, and we'll put some color, and we'll put some flocking or turf and see what it looks like.
Here are the colors I'm using, and I don't really have an explanation. I'm using yellow ochre, like a buttermilk color, and this plum color, which I thought would be pretty. And then this I think is forest green. Thicket. I think it says thicket on there. Anyway, and my favorite color, slate gray, which is not a slate gray, but it is a pretty bluish gray. And I'm going to use some water and just go all over. Now, the video is obviously sped up, but I was very hasty when I was doing it. Really, you should take your time. If this video is a lesson in anything, it is put your patient's pants on and zip them up and button them tightly. Yeah, don't be so hasty. I think I was just, I don't know. I just was having one of those weeks. So I just keep adding the color. I think I started with the buttermilk, and then I went to the ochre, and now I'm doing the forest green, and I just keep going through it all. And the walnut is actually taking the color pretty well. And now I'm using this plum color, which I kind of like the way it looks. Yeah. So here's pretty much how my colors turned out. Yeah, I like the way it looks on the bark and on the walnut. I'm not so sure about the egg carton. I think the egg carton needs a little more brown, and I do go back and add some brown to the egg carton. I didn't add it to the other pieces, so maybe if I had to do it again, I would do that. I'm just mixing up my homemade mulch with some glue. This is just regular white glue to see how that might look on my sample board. So I'm applying these things to the fourth square just to see how I like them for the roof of the cottage. And this mixture I'm just applying with my fingers. It was a little difficult because the cardboard is a little bit slippery, but I got it down and I kind of like the way that looks. I'm going to also add some, this is just that purple sage that grows everywhere, at least here in California. And I wanted to add that little bit of color, and I'm just adding a little bit more of the moss just to kind of see how I like. I think what I don't like about this little mixture that I made is the sand. Not that I don't like the texture or the way it looks, but it just has too much blue in it. So I didn't really like the way that was so blue, but I don't know. Overall, I kind of like the way it looks. Now I'm going to use the turf, which I just bought in the hobby section, like where the trains, stuff would be in your hobby store. I got it at Hobby Lobby, and it was $8.50. They also have it on Amazon and anywhere else you want to buy products. I'm just adding a little more of the purple sage there. And it'll go on the roof there, the little curved part of the cottage. I should have left well enough alone at this point and just made my selection of materials to use for the cottage. But I decided I wanted to try some different methods of grouting. I shouldn't have done it. Really, the surface area that I have here is not large enough for what I was attempting to do, and you'll see in just a moment. I coated it with Mod Podge to protect it from the grouting, but it doesn't protect from mistakes. I've created a little grout mixture here. I mixed plaster of Paris and chalk pastel to get a cocoa-like color, and I'm applying it to each material, the bark, the walnut, and the egg carton. But as you can see, it gets all over everything. And then instead of just waiting till I did the other treatments, I'm spraying it down with some alcohol, which I watched Shira from Queen City Minis do. So I wanted to copy her, of course, because hers came out beautifully. And it's just getting all over because I'm not thinking it through and I'm not taking my time. I'm just anxious to get it done so I can make my video and I can make a decision for my cottage. So I really spent too much time fretting over this whole project when really it's just a sample. It's not even my project. All right, moving on to my next method of grouting. I'm putting glue in between the stones and I'm applying the turf. And again, it's just getting messy. And this was the worst part here where I just scraped up some of my floral foam to create my own turf and mixed it with glue, far too much glue. I mean, way too much glue. You could pave a road with the amount of glue and material that I put here. And then I'm putting it in and letting it all dry, thinking I'm going to wipe each thing away when it's done. And then I had to go about the rest of my busy day and come back to a disaster. So thinking I'm going to be all neat and nice, I'm using a surgical technique of draping so that I only have the area that I'm working on exposed so as not to contaminate the other areas. Does this work? No. Am I patient? No. Should I have been a surgeon? Not in a million years. Yep, Dolly friends, this is it. So the idea is that for each material, the bark, the walnut shell, and the eggshell, there are 3 treatments: my homemade moss, the store-bought turf, and the plaster for grouting. Yeah, I think overall, the look I like the most for my little cottage is the egg carton and the bark. I do like the way the walnut shell turned out. It reminds me of like Riverstone, but it was very, very difficult to do. So if you were doing like a wall or a pond, I would recommend that. Don't use my sample here as any kind of an idea of what you might use. I'm going to go ahead and use the egg carton on my cottage, and I'm thinking I'm going to do it so that I don't even need to grout because I really did not enjoy this process at all. I think because the surface area I was doing was just too small, and that's actually just an excuse. I was completely and utterly impatient. So grab those patience pants out of your closet, have them altered to fit you, and come back and visit me next time in the doll cupboard.
Oh, that's the wrong side. This is why I don't use this. Gosh. my goodness. So happy about that. But this is gonna give me that. Glue, why glue?